Hey Waffle Gang, I do hope you're well. My name is Mark and today we're checking out some more r/my butthole. And if you love a Reddit story, why not consider hitting that like, subscribe, maybe that notification bell too. And just a couple of thank yous before we do move on. I'd like to thank Destroyer God Broly for the join, Susan Watson for the join, Havizi Yasufu, Annie Took, Karen Desai and Bear Hugs fan for the rejoins as well. Thank you everyone for your love, time and support, and let's crack on with today's first story. Now today's first story does come with an update as usual, and it's from Secret Messenger Girl, who says, am I the arsehole for hiding from my mum that I've been messaging her birth daughter? Sorry for the weird title, but when my mum, 46 female, was 21, she married to some guy in the States who was cheating on her when she was pregnant. She hated him and that she was having his baby. Had a traumatic pregnancy, was really depressed and didn't like being a parent, then so signed away rights to Alyssa, 25 female, some months after she gave birth. Alyssa was adopted by her father's affair partner and raised by her. My mum moved up north here to Canada, fell in love with my dad and married him when she was 30. She's had nothing to do with Alyssa besides demanding she never contact her again after she tried to. Last year my mum finally told me about Alyssa but made it clear that she didn't see her as her daughter and that Alyssa's mother was her father's wife. She also demanded that we not try to get them into any contact. So that's cool and all, but I was really fascinated by this idea of having a sister I never had. So I secretly started messaging her, and even though she was hesitant at first, we've become good friends and I really want to meet her. She's also become really successful in her field and works at the University of Toronto, which is where I want to go. Not gonna lie, I really look up to her and would love to follow in her footsteps, and Toronto's a lot better than the city we live in. The problem was that I left my phone unlocked yesterday and my mum freaked out when she saw that I was talking to her. She pointed out that she didn't want a reunion or me talking with her, that we aren't family and doesn't want my siblings to know before they are my age. I felt really bad because she started crying a lot more than I'd ever seen before. My dad told me it would be okay, but he's the one who dropped me off at school, even though it's always her. I'm wondering if I was an asshole to hide me messaging Alyssa from her instead of just being open about it. And before we do go to the update, we are going to go to the comments because there is a lot of different mixed comments on this one, absolutely all over the place. So we're going to start with LatterAd4065 who says, not the arsehole. Just say this, Mum, I understand you have a boundary when it comes to her. I promise you I will respect that boundary. I won't bring her up to you in any way and I won't push for a reunion. But please understand that this is someone who I genuinely look up to. I enjoy the friendship I have with her. I promise she still won't be a part of your life, but please respect my decision. Late for Dinner says, I'm super curious on how you plan to navigate a relationship with your mum and with your half-sister. Cause when you get married, how will you invite your half-sister knowing your mother's boundary? Or will you force your mother to accept her presence or future children? Or is your half-sister okay with the idea of not being invited to life events? I get that it's not your job to help your mother through her very obvious trauma, and your mum does need some help talking about whatever happened. But I just can't help but feel you'll be in a position one day where you'll have to pick between them. OP replies to this saying, assuming all goes good between me and my sister, yeah, I'd want her there for my wedding and for my kids, and I want to be at her wedding whenever she has it. She doesn't want to see my mum any more than my mum wants to see her. I mean, this is like 10 years in the future, so I don't know what I'd do, but I don't give a fuck thinking about it right now, so I guess I'd just ask them to avoid each other. Female Human says, soft, you're the arsehole. It is difficult for young people to understand that their parents are not their property. They are people who have lives outside of parenthood. For some reason, Redditors cannot grasp that giving up a child for adoption is the most selfless act a person can commit. To be clear, not only did you choose to satisfy your curiosity with no consideration for your mother's feelings, you put the adoptee at legal risk. It is a crime in Ontario for an adoptee to have contact with children of their birth parents without the express consent from the parent. Even worse, you were a minor, so technically she had illegal contact with a minor. The government made sibling contact illegal to protect the thousands of women who contacted them threatening to commit suicide if their other children ever found out. Think about that, kiddo. Thousands of women ended up in counseling at the mere suggestion that the adoption law was being rewritten and that they might be contacted by their child and their secret revealed. Thousands of women threatened suicide. Your mum shared the most traumatic event of her life and you made it all about you. Teenagers are selfish. You knew you were in the wrong, but are too young to know just how badly you messed up. I sincerely hope this doesn't destroy your mum and family. I also hope that if this does destroy your family, you will not let it destroy you, and that you understand you were too young and naive to understand the consequences of your actions. I'm so sad for you and your mother. This is a horrid situation. Bigfoot apparently says, this is not a popular opinion and I know I'm going to get downvoted to oblivion, but here it goes, and then crosses out this little section here that says, you're the arsehole for not contacting your sister but for doing it behind your mother's back. Then goes on to say, your mother did not have to be honest with you and tell you that you had a half sister. But she did, and she made her boundaries very clear while doing so. You could at least given her the same amount of honesty back by telling her about your intentions to get in touch with Alyssa beforehand. It also could have been a good opportunity to clarify each of your boundaries, and then edited saying, change in judgment to no one's an arsehole here, because OP's mum never told her she didn't want her to get in touch with her sister. OP replied to that saying, I know, it's just that I was scared at the time that she'd get angry and stop me from talking with her. I really do love my mum a lot, and I do think that hiding it was the wrong thing to do. I just wish I could make her happy again, since this has been gnawing at me all day and I can't even focus on school because of it. Lightning Lilac says, no one's an arsehole here. I don't think it's right for your mum to try and stop you from having a relationship, but it also sounds like a decision regarding the adoption was made years ago, and she's established a hard boundary around a traumatic time. She's not an arsehole for being upset that boundary may be violated. I suggest you consider how you respect your mum's boundary while continuing the relationship with your bio sister, and assure your mother that you respect their decision, though it's not the right one for you. So now we're going to move straight to the update from OP, who says, hey guys, thought I'd update. First thing, I gave my mum a giant hug like my little sister does and said sorry, and she forgave me. Then I had a big talk with mum and dad about Alyssa. The first thing my mum asked was if Alyssa wanted to meet her. She seemed sad when I told her that Alyssa threatened to cut me off if I'd ever tried to make them meet. Then it got to what I wanted from Alyssa, and I said I just wanted to be her sister, to get to know her and be friends in real life and not just on the phone. I did admit that I wanted to go pursue the field I told them of at the University of Toronto, and again, I apologize if I'm getting the pronunciations for the Canadian places mixed up. I'm sorry. Because of her. I could tell my mum was getting a bit mad, but dad pointed out Alyssa is a really successful, good role model and a good mentor, and to deny me her would only hurt my future, so I had their permission. My mum did bring up that you guys did, like, what if I graduate or get married and stuff? I admitted that I didn't know, but I'd find stuff that made it better or find different ways. I guess that hurt my mum, so she said we'll deal when it happens, but that she can work on her pain for me, and if Alyssa loves me, she will too. I did have to promise not to tell my siblings, wasn't going to anyway, about Alyssa. Next time I talked to Alyssa, I told her that my mum found out we were talking and told her the whole mess that happened. She said she was glad that we could keep talking and it meant a lot to her that I want to be her sister. I told her what my mum said about me getting married, and she said they'd find a way, and joked that she could just put on a balaclava mask for all the events to avoid being seen. Well, on Christmas, Alyssa FaceTimed and showed me a really pretty ring her boyfriend got her and said she was getting married, and my present was tickets to see her in spring break and an invite to her wedding stuff in the summer. She did say if my mum said I couldn't go, she'd understand. I talked with mum and dad, and I can go as long as I take my older cousin with me. He's 25 and has known all this for years, and according to Alyssa, I can. She wants me to have a role in her wedding. Hopefully things aren't bad in March and I can go to Toronto. Honestly, since then it's all been great. I talked with Alyssa a lot more. She's gotten me into a game called Age of Empires. Cracking game. She's helped me with my chemistry homework. Mum's been going to therapy about her and started training me in tennis, and on Friday I got the invite card to her wedding, and it was written for me as, to my sweet little sister. Have to hide it from my siblings though. So I guess that's me using my one update to tell you guys that I think it's a happy ending. And it does sound like a wonderful ending as well. And I don't have too much to say on it really, and I'm sort of glad, Mum's getting therapy for herself to, help herself in this situation as well. My only concern is that you're hiding it from your siblings now, because I think it's only again, whenever we cover like secrets and hiding stuff, especially that Mum knows, everyone seems to know apart from these siblings, that's going to come out eventually, and it's just going to cause more aggro in the end. I would just say, just get it out there, But who am I? I'm a nobody. But what do you guys make of this situation? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below, and we'll move on to another story. And this story also follows with an update from Wedding Home Question, who asks, am I the arsehole for not allowing my oldest daughter to use my home as a wedding venue because her mother and her family will be invited? I had a restraining order against them until recently. I'm in a pretty bad situation right now. When my stepdaughter got married 2 years ago, she used our home as the wedding venue. We have a meadow in our backyard that is able to accommodate a large number of people, as well as an empty clean barn that can be set up for dinner tables. My daughter was supposed to marry at another location last year, but because of the pandemic, the venue shut down permanently. She's now asked to use my home for the wedding, but I told her my issues with that. I had a restraining order against her mother, my ex, and a few members of her family after threats and harassment were directed towards my wife and myself. The restraining order expired mid last year, but we haven't heard from them since, but I stayed firm in my decision. This upset my daughter greatly, and she screamed at me, which she's never done. I offered to give her $15,000 for an alternative venue, but now she's adamant about it being our home. I feel extremely uncomfortable giving my ex and her family access to my home because that's where the washrooms will be. My daughter has put this issue on Facebook, and I now have all my extended family against me. This has also stirred up my ex and her family against me. And worse is that my wife and stepdaughter are now being accused of trying to ruin my daughter's wedding when they haven't played any part in it. I'm planning on giving in and letting my daughter use our home for the wedding later this year. But I'm going to tell my wife and stepdaughter not to be around for it, which I'm sure is going to create a bunch of other issues. Am I the arsehole? And we have like a mini update on this post, and then we have a full post update as well. And it's an absolute not the arsehole from me, and I can't believe your daughter's determined to go down this road, knowing that you had a restraining order against these people. They may be, but I don't think restraining orders are handed out willy-nilly. I've heard it's pretty difficult to actually get one, so there must be a good reason for you wanting this, and then to have these people wandering around your house, yeah, that would set alarm bells ringing for me. Absolutely not the arsehole at all. And putting myself like in daughter's shoes in this situation, I could see why that wouldn't be a good idea, so yeah, there is that. But Manic Murderino says, woo, what a sticky wicket. Not the arsehole under the circumstances. Recommendation, renting porta potties, or maybe a commercial tent for the bride to get ready in. For the day is relatively inexpensive and will ensure that nobody needs access to your home. Random Guy 5 says, are you kidding? Not the arsehole. You kinda had a restraining order on 2 members and you gave her an opportunity to find somewhere else. Why is she so adamant about your house? And then YKNJS replies that saying, I would bet money on her mum laying it onto her about how her father must prefer his stepdaughter and that sort of thing. Adult children can still be hurt and weaponized, particularly if there are any old wounds from childhood that can be picked at. I'm not saying OP did anything wrong, we don't know the story, but divorce and blended families can be hard on kids, especially if things get nasty between the parents, which the existence of a restraining order suggests they did. If she went far enough that there was a restraining order involved, I don't doubt she'd use her daughter to cause more drama. Adept1819 says, not the arsehole, go renew the restraining order if your ex and her family are harassing you, and explain to your daughter that she can either have the wedding at your home without her mother and her side of the family, or she can accept the $15,000 and have it elsewhere. But for the personal safety reasons, you will not let her mother into your home. Otherwise, rent porta potties. They have some super fancy ones for wedding venues. Trailers don't look or smell like porta potties, with a washroom. Yeah, to be fair, I went to a wedding like before all these COVID times that had these trailers with like the toilets in, and they were amazing. They were better than my toilet. But PBC85 says, not the arsehole. But how is it that you raised your presumably adult daughter in such a way that when you don't give her what she wants, she screams at you and goes after you on Facebook? And why do you now think the right thing to do is give in to her antics by letting her do the wedding at your house after all? My own daughter just got married and I provided financial support. If she had screamed at me about anything related to the wedding, you can be sure that financial support would have been withdrawn. An OP replies saying, my daughter has never raised her voice at me, but I can only imagine that other family members are riling her up. She also posted something on Facebook that didn't explicitly blame me, but my own sister made it into a circus that involved my ex and her family. I feel badly that my daughter is put under all this stress due to my ex and my issues. Then the mini update said, I messaged my daughter about the outdoor trailer bathrooms and she has refused and said it was a disgusting idea. She then accused me of treating her worse than my stepdaughter and that I play favourites and that I'm a terrible father. She does not want the wedding at our home anymore and hung up. She is no longer picking up my calls. I got an angry call from my mother who says she is hosting her wedding instead and that I will not be welcomed at the wedding. My father will be walking my daughter down the aisle instead of me. Thanks everyone for the advice, I appreciate it, but I feel like I've made the biggest mistake of my life. I'm completely heartbroken. And now we're going to move straight on to the new update. I've had many messages asking me for an update that I've only noticed after logging back into this account. I have a fairly positive update. My daughter's wedding took place in October last year. After a few months of my daughter refusing to talk to me, my wife saw how I was being affected by the situation and said I should just let my daughter use our home without any restrictions, that we should lock up our valuables and hope for the best. I was extremely hesitant, but at my wife's insistence, I arranged a meeting at my mother's home and made the offer. I was immediately told that it was too late and that the new invitations were already sent out and the wedding would be happening at my mother's property. But my daughter asked for the $15,000 I originally offered for an alternative venue to be used to renovate my mother's home a little for the wedding. I just accepted that this was the best it was going to get and gave her the money. My daughter still didn't warm up to me after this and would only reply to texts occasionally. Then a month before the wedding, I was told to come to the wedding without my wife. My daughter said that, similar to how my wife and I felt, her mother and some members of her maternal family felt uncomfortable being around us due to the expired restraining order. She said she was willing to fight them to have her father at the wedding, but my wife, stepdaughter and her husband were not invited. I was incredibly disappointed. I wanted to confront my daughter and potentially not go to the wedding at all if my wife wasn't invited. But my wife said there's too much bad blood and I should just attend the wedding quietly for my daughter's sake. I ended up attending the wedding alone and left once the dinner was done. While I got to see my daughter get married, my heart feels heavy that it was such a conflict-filled situation. Even having me walking her down the aisle became such a touchy subject that she just ended up having her half-brother walk her down the aisle instead. When I went to congratulate my daughter before I left, she angrily told me that she should have just eloped because of me and my ex, and that it's disgusting that her own parents ruined every aspect of her wedding, that she can't wait to build a life separate from everyone. I apologized and cried on my way home. A part of me is happy that my daughter is still somewhat talking to me, but I do regret putting her under so much stress. It's not her fault her parents can't get along. I'm just hopeful that we can slowly start repairing our relationship. And that's quite a sad ending to this in the end, and there was lots of people questioning about information being left out, because I Need to Go to the Store says, I'm very confused about why your own parents and sister are on your daughter's / her mum's side in this situation. Is there information being left out? Regardless, I'm sorry to hear about what you're going through. Hope things work out for the better with you and your daughter. To which OP replies saying, my parents despise my ex as much as I do, if not more. They contemplated getting a protection order against my ex at one point too, but they compensate by favouring my daughter to the extreme. My sister is miserable and likes to gossip with my ex. My parents and I do not have a relationship with my sister. She wasn't invited to the wedding. My mother is of the mindset that my daughter should come first over everybody because her parents are divorced. I don't feel that's a healthy way to raise someone, but I can only control my actions. It's just dysfunctional family dynamics all around. Core81 says and quotes, "But my wife said there's too much bad blood and I should just attend the wedding quietly for my daughter's sake," and then goes on to say, "That is very mature of your wife," to which OP replied saying she is an incredible person. But the real unfortunate part of this whole situation has been the fallout that my wife and stepdaughter have to deal with. There's members of my family who think my wife played a part in not having our home made available for my daughter, even though I've repeatedly told them that she in fact pushed to let the wedding happen at our home. Even worse is that both my daughter and my stepdaughter's husband worked for my father. My son-in-law had to change companies because of how awkward the entire situation was, since my father was fully supporting my daughter. So my stepdaughter ended up moving 2 hours away, which has upset my wife greatly. I just keep thinking that if maybe we just sucked it up for one day and just let the wedding happen at our home in the first place, we wouldn't be in this terrible situation. And as we said, a rather sad ending to this post in the end, and I do wonder if there is additional information. I'll certainly keep an eye on that post to see if any comments pop up regarding what happened in the past between these families, but I'm not sure if we will get it. But what do you guys make of this situation? What do you think about the initial story, then the update as well? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Now, just a huge thank you from the bottom of my heart for being involved in today's story, spending 20 to 30 minutes with me today, getting involved, the likes and subscribes, everything you do is absolutely amazing. Thank you so much for your love, time and support, and I will see you, I hope so anyway, in the next one. Take care guys, much love.